So today on Sports File, we take a quick look at one of the most mediocre goalies in the NHL of all time, Dan Bouchard. Now, Dan Bouchard, for most of his career, had a goals against average in the upper three, lower four range. He was most notably one of the key goalies during the expansion years of the Atlanta Flames, and eventually followed the team into Calgary and later went on to skate for the Quebec Nordiques. But where he stands out in hockey history is a very unique thing, because in the 1982 divisional playoff against the Montreal Canadiens, which Quebec won 3-2 due to a Dale Hunter overtime goal in a very short Game 5 overtime, Bouchard told the French press that God, not he, made the saves during the game. He was a born-again Christian, nothing wrong with that, but he basically claimed that God gave him the ability not only to make the saves, God was working through him to beat the Montreal Canadiens. And he was confronted by a very learned member of the press saying, "Do you believe that God chose you over the Montreal Canadiens?" Was Rick Walmsley not encouraged by God to make better saves or whatever? He couldn't give an answer. And ironically, 2 years later, he was the goalie that choked for the Nordiques in the infamous Game 6 of their rematch of that divisional series. For any Montreal fans that know, there was a big brawl between the second and third period where it delayed the game by an hour, and the infamous Dale Hunter was the instigator of this brawl. Tons of penalties, goalies were fighting, cheap shots galore. Louis Schlegel almost blinded John Amell with a random shot. And allegedly he was asked after the game, "Where was God tonight, Dan?" And he basically said, "Oh, I still believe, my faith is strong, such and such." But as a Christian, I can tell you, God doesn't play favorites when it comes to NHL teams or any team. You do your best and you pray for the health of both teams. But for him to say, "Oh, well, God made the saves," well, God got better things to be dealing with than trying to improve the vestiges of a mediocre goalie. Only him and one of my nemesis from years ago, Jerry Desjardins, who I told to his face he was the main reason maybe why Buffalo couldn't win the cup in '75, because he was any better. Roger Crozier wouldn't have been the starting goalie in that series against the Flyers. So I appreciate Dan Bouchard and his testimony. I appreciate any person who finds the Lord. But if you think on a professional level that your prayers will make you above other people, well, whatever God you're talking to is not the God of the Montreal Canadiens. And as we all know, the CH in Montreal for many stands for Catholic hockey. Anyway, best wishes on this snowy New Brunswick morning, and as we like to say in the North Shore, keep your stick in the ice.